Are you thinking about a career in fashion, or do you want to learn from industry leaders? Here are my current top 5 books about fashion personalities and brands which I personally found really inspiring. Let's get started. When discussing careers in fashion, we either immediately think of the fashion designers or the people who write about them, and then one person comes to mind. She has a very impressive career path, but she's also probably one of the most polarizing personality in the fashion industry. I'm talking about Anna Wintour, and I'd like to discuss the most recent biography about her. After The Devil Wears Prada, everybody knows Anna Wintour, even people who don't work in the fashion industry, and many people associate her with the Starbucks lattes, that she fires her assistants, that she ghosts people who disagree with her. And when the biography came out by Amy Odell, I got intrigued because it looked like a very well-researched piece. The author claims that she interviewed 250 people. She also went into the archives and analyzed old spreads by Anna Wintour, not only the ones from Vogue, but also when she worked for other publications. Odell also analyzed old letters, for example, between Wintour and her father and other editors. And some magazines or publications criticize Odell and claim that she didn't back up the comments made in the videos. But for me, that's actually a minor issue. I trust the author here if she says she interviewed 250 people, and I personally found it very interesting to read. I found it very interesting to learn more about Anna Wintour's life and career. I have to admit, before Anna by Amy Odell, I have not read any other formal biography about Anna Wintour, but I read a lot about her online or in other magazines. I also watched a lot of videos. But I found it very interesting to dive in and also learn more about Anna Wintour before she moved to America. How did she grow up in England? For example, it is interesting to see that already very early on she enjoyed socializing very much because she enjoyed going to parties, but obviously it was more for her to dress up and meet people rather than partying all night long and getting drunk and then coming home early in the morning. So this is yet another book about an inspiring leader or an inspiring personality who proved to me the power of networking. And all these inspiring leaders started to build up their network early. And this was something that actually reminded me of Karl Lagerfeld, who I'm going to discuss a bit later. And there were many facets of Anna Wintour's character, personality, which reminded me of Lagerfeld. And I think there is a reason why those two clicked and had a very long friendship. For example, Anna Wintour, just like Lagerfeld, is known for the high standards that she sets for herself and also the people working around her. She's known for her work ethics. This is something that also Lagerfeld was famous for. But apart from that, she is a person who has a broad range of interests. Just like Lagerfeld, her interests are not limited to the fashion world. They move beyond fashion into art, into business, into music. So this was also very, very interesting to see. In conclusion, I would like to say that I very much enjoyed reading this book, but I would also like to say before reading it, I also was very skeptical of Anna Wintour for obvious reasons. She is a very polarizing personality, but for exactly that reason, I found this book so interesting because I had the feeling that Amy Odell's book is a bit more balanced. It allows you to dive into not only her life, but also her career. And even though it is an unauthorized biography about Anna Wintour, I had the feeling it is still very personal. And whether you are a fan of Anna Wintour or not, it is a fact that she is a very influential person. She is among the most influential people in the world. And I personally always find it very interesting to read how somebody ended up there, especially if they are a woman. So I recommend this book not only to people in the fashion industry, but also for people who are interested in these career paths. Will you become a fan of Anna Wintour and fall in love with her after this book? I doubt it, but I highly recommend Amy Odell's Anna. From one polarizing fashion personality to the next, Karl Lagerfeld, I mentioned him before, and I would like to discuss Paradise Now by William Middleton. This book came out early this year, and if you have watched my previous videos or if you have read my articles on thepinklookbook.com, you know that I have kind of a special relationship with Karl Lagerfeld. I have to be honest, before this year's Met Gala and the exhibition A Line of Beauty at the Metropolitan Museum in New York, I did not really like Lagerfeld at all. Paradise Now was one of the books which I read in preparation for my fashion talks with Madame Faction about the Met Gala and the exhibition. I also listened to parts of the audiobook, but I have to say I think this is a book that you should rather read as a book. for two reasons. First of all, it is quite intense. There are also some lengthy parts in there which you can skip easier if you read it. And also one personal thing, the person reading the English version had a very bad pronunciation of any French terms, and I personally found that really annoying. I'm very sorry that I complain here about this poor person reading out this book, but this is a personal thing. I recommend you get the book and read it. I have read many books about Lagerfeld, but I probably enjoyed Paradise Now most for the reason that the author is really good at bringing Lagerfeld's life to life in front of you. Let's put it like this. He manages to make you feel almost as a protagonist in Lagerfeld's life. He takes you to Paris in the 1970s. You party with all these friends Lagerfeld had. He also takes you to Lagerfeld's childhood, and the way the book is written allowed me to get a deeper understanding of Lagerfeld, his many interests, his background, and why he probably constructed this persona in the media. What I personally found really interesting is to learn more about Lagerfeld's many interests, that he was not only interested in fashion and sketching and creating clothes, he was also interested in photography. He photographed many campaigns himself. He was interested in literature, theater, so many things. And he even taught himself French at the age of 6 to understand his parents, who used the language to converse about topic he was not supposed to understand. So all of these small things I found very interesting, and it kind of helped me understand the persona Lagerfeld more. I leave it up to you to decide what you want to think about him. If you say he was a marketing genius who polarized for a reason, or if he was just an old man who didn't know what he was saying anymore in the end. So all of this I leave up to you. But what I would like to say, I think this book is great, especially if you don't like Karl Lagerfeld. For people like me who have this difficult relationship with him, it really opened up my mind about him to learn new facets about this persona or this personality. Whether we decide to like him or not is a different story. And another very important takeaway from this book for me was that you have to be versatile if you want to succeed in fashion. I don't like this expression, you have to be able to wear many hats, but it's kind of true. Lagerfeld was living proof. He was not only a great designer, he was a visionary, a great strategist, a great businessman, a great person at marketing. No matter what you may think about him, but this is a fact, he was really good at this. He was really good at networking, and he also had a really good feeling about trends, what is going to come next, and he was always in the know. So this is another reason why I would highly recommend this book. Let's talk about House of Gucci. You have probably seen the movie, but I'm talking about the book. The book already came out a while ago in 2001, and I also read it some time ago. I think it was in 2018, and it's such a good book. I highly recommend it because it was one of these books where I couldn't stop reading. It's impeccably researched, it's well written. I really could not put it down. Even if you have seen the movie, I highly recommend reading the book, and here's the reason why. The movie, of course, focuses more on personal relationships and the comedy and the drama. For example, the relationship between Maurizio Gucci and Patrizia leading up to his murder, or also the funny cousin who was played by Jared Leto. So this whole movie was very lighthearted and fun, which is okay for a movie, and I understand why they focused more on these personal relationships. The book dives much deeper into the business side, and what I really liked about the book is this mix of this business side and the relationships, because the book never becomes boring, even though it is actually the history of a brand. The book starts much earlier than the movie. It goes back to the beginnings when Gucci started trading high quality leather goods, when he sold them in London, for example. It describes how he built up the business, how he diversified, how the brand then globally expanded in the 1970s, and how the big change came with Domenico Del Sole and Tom Ford in the 1990s. All of these business things, they are just briefly mentioned in the movie, or they are just implied. Needless to say, that whole family drama in a family business, that makes it very interesting. It also is kind of like the salt and pepper to this book, I would say. But I found it personally interesting to also learn more about a business which started out as a one-man show and then grew so much that today it is a global household name. And if you read the book, you will also understand the movie better and probably also enjoy it more. I can only share my personal experience. I really enjoyed the movie, but I think this was because I had read the book before. And that's why I didn't find it boring or lengthy, because the characters came to life and I also understood the small details and things that were implied. I think somebody who hadn't read the book before probably didn't get a lot of things in the movie. And one example is when everybody is at Maurizio's uncle's birthday party, there is a speech and Gucci is described as a noble man in the speech, and then Maurizio whispers that he is annoyed with all the lying. And this refers to a myth that Gucci as a family or as a brand created later, that Gucci was not a commoner, he was a noble man. And without reading the book, I would not understand what Maurizio is referring to. In conclusion, it's one of my favorite books. It's definitely one that I will read again, not only because of all the drama, but also because of all the brand history and the knowledge about business that is being shared in this really impeccably written and researched book. Speaking of Italian dynasties, another House of Versace by Deborah Ball is not only the biography of Gianni Versace, but also kind of the history of the brand. It starts with Gianni Versace learning the craft in Sicily, how he grew up there and how he built up the business into a global brand. And it also moves beyond his death in the late 1990s and discusses how the brand evolved after that. One aspect of the book which I found really interesting was Gianni Versace's close relationship with his sister Donatella. She was not only his muse, he created a lot of garments for her, but she was also the marketing brain behind the brand. And this is what a lot of people don't know. Today we associate Donatella and her designs for the Versace brand, and we can discuss whether we like them or not. But what is a fact is that Gianni was the creative brain of the brand, and Donatella was the major driver in terms of marketing. She was the real networker, and she also had a feeling for trends, and also she was the one who started collaborating with models more. For example, with Claudia Schiffer and all the supermodels, she had the idea of flying them into shows, for gifting them garments, later on paying them, and she made major contributions in turning this brand into a global household name. As you can imagine, this was not a cheap marketing strategy, and in addition, Gianni and Donatella loved to shop, so this also negatively affected, of course, the financials of the company. And did you know that at the time when Jennifer Lopez wore the famous green jungle dress in 2000, the company was actually on the brink of bankruptcy? So I think I have shared a lot now what you can learn from this book. Just go buy and read it. The last book I would like to share here is In My Shoes by Tamara Mellon. And I actually stumbled upon this book by accident when I was in a bookstore, and I always look for interesting biographies which are not in this like chronological order that can get quite boring. So I always look for something intriguing and interesting. Of course, in the case of Tamara Mellon, I have to say the intriguing and interesting point was that she is a shoe designer. And you may not have heard about Tamara Mellon, but I'm sure you have heard about Jimmy Choo. And what many people don't know is that Tamara Mellon was the co-founder of this famous shoe brand, and that she started the business together with the shoemaker called Jimmy Choo from London. Why is the story so interesting? Until today, there is kind of a fight or argument between Tamara Mellon and Jimmy Choo. If you go onto the About Us website of jimmychoo.com, the shoe brand, you will see that Tamara Mellon is not mentioned at all. It is about Jimmy Choo himself and also Sandra Choi, his niece. There's also a picture of her. You can imagine that those two obviously didn't part amicably, but what I find a bit strange is no matter how the relationship ended, I find it strange if you don't mention a co-founder at all in your company history. While there are always two sides of a conflict, there's not much that we can find about Jimmy Choo's side of this conflict, because obviously he doesn't like the spotlight. But I found it interesting to read Tamara Mellon's side of this conflict, and she describes how she started the business, how she came up with the idea for this shoe brand, how she approached Jimmy Choo, how they then together created the shoes. And then also she describes how the relationship deteriorated. According to her, Jimmy Choo did not agree with certain moves or decisions she made to turn the business into a global brand. Apart from these dynamics between co-founders and shareholders, I found the book very interesting because Tamara Mellon also shares her personal experience with private equity investments. And I have to say, as a fashion business owner myself, I really appreciated this because the pressure is constantly on. People always ask, do you have an investor? They think an investor is the holy grail. Once you get outside investment, you will automatically be successful. And Tamara Mellon shares how taking on private equity capital affected the business. For example, they had to switch suppliers and also switch to lower quality materials to increase margins. And this is something that I personally found really interesting to read, because when you think about a brand like Jimmy Choo with very high prices, you would think they choose the best quality materials, but obviously that's not the case. So I appreciated this honest view. Mellon also claims that she would never take on private equity investment again. This remains to be seen. She also now runs a label under her own name, so we can see in the future if she really stuck to that. But I really appreciated this perspective of the business as well. These were my top 5 books about inspiring fashion personalities and brands. And just as a side note here, this is a non-sponsored video. I'm just sharing my personal view here about books which I really enjoyed reading. And I'm curious about you. Have you read any of these books? And if yes, did you like them or did you not like them? Or do you have any other book recommendations? I'm always looking for new books to read, so let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please head over to thepinklookbook.com to read more fashion-related articles. Also, don't forget to check out my fashion brand Pelagona. And I'm also sure that you will enjoy watching my other video about luxury bags and if they are a good investment. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.